Hey guys, it is Obi here. We are going to continue on talking about our HVAC systems. So, yesterday we talked about temperature control, which would be everything here in the middle section. The day before that we talked about airflow control, so now we know that we pressurize air with a blower motor and we send all of it through the evaporator core, which is this part, and then some of it, depending on the need, or all of it if we require it, goes through the heater core, and then from there we're going to learn today about the outlet control system. Okay, so let's get over here. So the outlet control section contains everything necessary to change the direction of the outgoing air. It's going to include the following components: the airflow ducts, the temperature door actuators, and then it can be single or dual zone. I know that's not really a component, but I want to get that part out of here now. So the airflow ducts are pretty simple. It's just hoses or plastic or whatever that's going to get our air where we're trying to get it. And then the temperature door actuators are going, to be directing the air where we want it to go. So now on this side of the system, we can see we have a series of different little line looking things here, and that is actually a temperature door. So a temperature door looks just like this. It's just a piece of metal, or I'm sorry, a piece of plastic, and that piece of plastic is just going to deflect air to one direction or another. Okay, there's nothing really fancy about it. It's just a door. So when we look at this, basically what this means is that if this door is straight across, we are going to allow half of the air to go this direction and half of the air to go this direction. Okay. And then with this door, so this would actually be what's called the mode door, whether it is going to go to the defrost I said that wrong, whether it's going to go to your foot position or floor, and then maybe this is going to be mid-level, and then this will be defrost. Okay, so we can say right now we're going to have it go bi-level, which means it's going to go to one of a couple different areas. Or we can close this one off and say we just want everything to go to our feet because our feetsies are really, really cold. Okay? Or we flip it the other way, and then that is going to allow it to come to either just pure defrost or pure vent or a combination thereof. Okay? So we didn't talk yesterday about the temperature door actuators because it's kind of easier to explain the temperature door actuators along with the mode door actuators. So we will basically have three different doors in this whole system. We will have the recirculation door, the temperature doors, and then we will have the mode doors. So this is part of the air inlet system, this is part of the temperature control system, and then this is all part of the air outlet control system. But it's easier to explain it all at once because they are all the exact same door. They're all going to look similar to this. I mean, they might have a little bit different size, but same dealies going on. Okay, so we have a couple different ways that we can actually actuate those doors. Obviously, it can be mechanical. I don't know very many vehicles that are mechanical anymore. In fact, I can't think of any. But it's been around for a long time, and it's just a cable basically that goes from a lever to the door, and pretty simple. Nothing hard about that, right? The next style we see, which is typically on older vehicles, we don't see this very commonly anymore, is going to be a vacuum operated actuator. So basically this is just a little cylinder, and when we apply vacuum to this side, it is going to decrease the pressure on this side, and the pressure of air that's on this side is going to be enough to be able to overcome that spring force, and it will move that piston this way. And when it does that, this rod, which is connected to that piston, is actually going to be connected to the actuator, and therefore it is going to move the actuator. So under no vacuum on this side, the spring is going to be enough to push this open. So it's a single acting valve, which means it can be pulled one way, but it's going to be held at rest the other way. So with no vacuum, it's always going to be applied, and as soon as we apply vacuum, it's going to be on applied, or you can flip the terminology, it doesn't really matter. But vacuum does work pretty well. Never really had a whole lot of issues with it. The downside is if you start to lose, if you guys have seen the engine compartment, sometimes those vacuum hoses can get a little bit dry rotted and dilapidated. And when that happens, you start to get vacuum leaks, and it can be really fun to find a vacuum leak for your engine underneath the dash. So we'll go to this one, and this is actually a temperature door actuator. Okay, this is an electric one. This is probably pretty close to what we're going to see. Now I stress that this is just one example because you know the manufacturers like to make 100 different designs of the same freaking part. But they're all going to operate fairly similarly to this. They just might not look 100% like it. So a temperature door actuator, an electric temperature door actuator, is really, frankly, just there to take an electrical input and change it into a mechanical movement. So the guts of this thing, kind of simple. There's a little bit going on in here, but this is not a brush type DC motor like we talked about with the window motors. This has a electric motor with a worm gear that runs through a series of gear reductions. So we have 1 gear reduction, 2 gear reduction, and 3 gear reduction before we actually run the output. So that motor is spinning really fast for how fast that output is spinning. So this is actually a logic controlled motor. What that means is that we are actually forcing this thing to spin 1 revolution at a time, and it has a feedback circuit that we can count the revolutions. If you were to watch this on a scan tool, it'd probably be between 0 and 255 counts. So basically you can have up to 255 different door positions depending on where this motor is actually at, okay? So every revolution of this motor is a very small movement of the door, and that's how we're able to control it logically, okay? I'm not going to say we don't have some problems with those. It seems like there's a diode on those boards that likes to burn out. Couldn't really tell you why, but they do fail often enough. Okay, so this was the picture I was wanting to show you a second ago. Yeah, so here is the layout for this. This is our driver's floor outlet and our passenger. Now what I was going to tell you guys, or want to make sure you guys understand, is if you take this system, this is a dual zone vehicle, okay? So a dual zone vehicle means that the person in the passenger compartment can have a different temperature from the person on the driver's side, okay? That can be nice, especially when you're married. You're going to find out that sometimes it's a good idea to be able to let the other person have a different temperature because you guys just might not agree on what ideal actually is. So if there's a little bit more complexity, if you guys can tell that this is basically a mirror image of this side, okay? So if you were to take this and chop it off and just get rid of this half of the system, this is a single zone system, and really it's the exact same thing with half the components. So we're just adding twice the components, and we're going to split the airflow off at the heater core, okay? So most vehicles now, I would say, are actually going to be dual zone. Again, you see some that aren't, but the majority of them are getting to that point. So this is a dual zone climate control system. So you can see we have 3 different knobs to bring this back. So we have the blower motor, which is primarily going to control the air inlet. Then we have the recirc button over on this side also that's going to tell us whether we want outside or inside air. That is a little button with a U-shaped symbol, which is just signifying that we're going to reuse the air from inside. Don't want to use that if Baker farts, okay? If Baker farts, we want it to be fresh air from the outside. Roll the windows down. Now we have the temperature control section, which is these buttons, or well, these knobs. So this is a manual temperature control system. We can actually have one that's automatic. Now, the way this works, if we have the temperature control right here in the middle, that corresponds to a particular temperature. So we're going to say that this middle temperature is probably 75 degrees-ish. So if you set that knob in the middle, it's going to do its best job to maintain 75 degrees. And there's actually going to be sensors in the air ducts that are going to measure that temperature, and they are going to move the doors to accommodate that. But if we want it as hot as we can possibly get it, we got to take this knob and move it all the way to the top. If you're just a little bit off the top, it's not full hot. It has to be all the way to the top, okay? Same with an automatic system that's actually going to have a digital display, like my truck would. On that one, if you have it set at 61 degrees, it is going to do its best to maintain the temperature at 61 degrees. If you set it at 60, it's going to shut the heat off entirely and pump as much cool air into that vehicle as it possibly can. So 60 degrees is going to make it full cold, 60 degrees, or 90 degrees is going to make it full hot. 61 and 89 is not fully hot or cold. It is just a set temperature. So you have to understand, if you're really trying to cool a vehicle down or heat it up, you need to stick it on full hot, okay? And then finally, we have this switch here, which is going to control our modes. So we can be in a vent or floor and vent, or just the floor, or floor and defrost, or full defrost, okay? So that's probably enough information for you guys today. That's going to be about it for the HVAC system. I think we're going to move on tomorrow to actually talking about the air conditioning system, okay? So, all right. I'll talk to you guys later. We'll be out.